Hello and welcome to our YouTube channel. I'm Liz Margles and I head up marketing for Caesarstone in the United States, Canada, and Latin America. And today, I'm so excited that you all have joined us because we have two really special guests with us. We are going to talk about Caesarstone's new white light collection, our concept house, and just trends that are coming up in the market as a launching point to what I'm sure is going to be a really engaging discussion with Joe Saltz, who is the editor-in-chief of House Beautiful, as well as editorial director for Delish. And, you know, Joe and House Beautiful, I think more than any publication, really have their pulse on what's going on in home design in particular and what people are looking for in these crazy times. And our other special guest is Anishka Clarke. And Anishka is an incredible designer who really shares Caesarstone's point of view about bringing natural elements into the home and being influenced those. She is a partner in Ishka Designs, which is a Brooklyn-based interior design firm, and it specializes in residential, restaurants, and vacation properties globally. So I'd like to welcome both Joe and Anishka to our little YouTube panel, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Liz.
Hello.
Thank you.
Hi. So here we are from three different points in the Northeast, all enjoying an equally cloudy day together. But I'm so happy to see your bright, shiny faces. And thank you so much for joining us. So I wanted to kick it off because one of the things that we wanted to talk about today was innovation. And I think that word gets really bounced around in so many different applications in so many different ways. I mean, for us at Caesarstone, we don't just look at it from, a hard element, meaning a new color or a new surface that we've designed. But I think that innovation goes to the ways in which people are experiencing their spaces, the products that they put in their house, and everything that surrounds them. So Joe and Anishka, I want to throw that out to you. Like, what does innovation mean to you guys when you're thinking about it in terms of, how people are living, how people want to design their spaces?
Anishka, I'll let you take it.
Okay. All right. So I think from my perspective, it's about an overall evolution or improvement in functionality and substance or materiality. So, we're thinking of better ways to do things, better ways to improve on an age-old technique, for example, or something that's whether that's technological or it's the adaptation of a different material or the use of of a material in a different way. And I think overall, for it to really be innovative is for it to really shift the mindset of the population. So, if it's not adaptable or it's not practical or functional, then it's not innovative in my mind. So it has to be able to connect with the target audience and for them to adapt that and move forward in that direction.
And do you find that that's sort of a constant in your practice, that you're always searching out new innovative ways, new materiality, new functionality, or is that driven by, maybe something that your clients bring to you, or is it just sort of more of a collaborative kind of effort? And do you think that it's changed in this past year? Has it become more important?
So I think that our industry is always striving for innovation. So, and maybe it's the designers or the fabricators, the manufacturers that we kind of gravitate towards are always thinking, what next? What more can they do to improve? And so, we look forward to going to trade shows and experiences where we can interact with new ideas. One that comes to mind is this material that I had come across at High Point, which I didn't even expect to come across something like this, but it was using mushrooms as a fabric option, and I thought it felt like leather, and I just loved it, and it wasn't ready for market, but it's in the process of getting there, and I'm so excited to see that come to fruition. I think that'd be so incredible. But
Right.
but yeah, so it primarily from our standpoint, it primarily comes from the design world, and then oftentimes, and I find, to your point, clients are asking more and more for more earth conscious materials, things that won't affect their children or will improve the health and wellness of their environments. So, and I think in this last year, for sure, all of the clients that we've brought on board in recent times, definitely, one, they've sought us out because they know that we are very conscious and mindful in our approach to design, and two, that they themselves have this way that they want to live in the world, and so they are thinking about materials and function and technology and the ways that it can overall improve their well-being.
Right. So Joe, are you seeing the same thing, just from maybe communication with your readers, some feedback that you're getting? I mean, I know that, you're so great about introducing, the readers to new ideas and new trends, but is it the same sort of thing where it's, part of it is what you're pushing out and part of it, what you're seeing back?
Well, I think, to answer your first question about innovation, for me, and it does dovetail nicely with what Anishka was saying, is, I think that innovation is all about preempting the needs of the world before even the world knows they need it, right? If we can be forward thinking enough to understand, and the only way for us to really be able to do that is by listening, right? And understanding the needs of our audience, you start to be able to sort of mold and shape what you're creating to really foresee, what's coming down the road. I think what's interesting about, Anishka and green and being eco-conscious, what she was saying is, I think that smart companies started to see that, a number of years ago and started to, and innovate, and really sort of the future. And suddenly now the world sees, oh, wait, we have a climate control problem. We're going to need to actually pay attention to this.
Yeah, amongst other problems. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, and it's so interesting because I think you're right. I love what you were saying about, and I say that about marketing all the time. It's not necessarily the secret sauce of marketing is, giving people what they didn't even know that they wanted yet. And I think that, is very aligned with what you were saying. And I think for us, obviously we launched this white light collection this year, which was all about, earthy warmth and bringing serenity into the home, maybe some, crisp whites and some warm whites, just offering this overall sense of wellness and serenity. But had we not already sort of future proof that, or didn't have a line of sight into what we thought people were going to be wanting in their homes, we wouldn't have been able to turn it around that quickly. So I think you're right. There is that sort of, alchemy where you're combining, some of the trend forecasting that we all do as part of our day to day, whether it's through travel, whether it's through reading, whether it's through going to conferences, and then coming up, as a team and bringing it all forward. So, I think you're right. And I think with regard to, people being more sensitive to the materiality that they put into their house, I think, this year in particular, whereas it might have been in people's mindset at the back of their minds as sort of a secondary consideration, I think now that they're trying to really protect and control what they can on the inside and be with their family, that's become even more important to everybody.
Yeah. And I would say, even in addition to that, we're all talking about the same thing. If people are at their homes more, they need those homes to work harder. They're looking at the things that make them crazy. They don't want to deal with imperfections. They want to create the space they want. But, I think the things that we're not talking about are the fact that, people now want to invest in quality, whereas before there was a trend of, people wanting to get it fast and cheap. People now understand how important their space is and how nothing than something really well produced is going to do. You know, people are certainly willing to wait, and they want to make sure that they're filling their homes with things that are not only responsible, but that are going to last a long time.
Right, right. And when we talk about trends, Anishka, are you seeing anything with regard to movement towards sort of one colorway versus another colorway, or is it a trend towards sort of a texture, or again, like going back to natural elements? What are you seeing in your world?
I think we don't tend to kind of like gravitate towards trends. However, our clients have been very much all about the natural elements and the kind of textural experiences. So if that is indication of what is, you know, what we already love and what we already like have always wanted to present to the world, then that could be something that's just not a trend, but just something that's going to sustain and be like the norm, you know, for most going forward. So yeah, I'm not mad at it. I think that, you know, what's interesting though is that natural materials have a limited lifespan for the most part, right? So there is a sense of you know, your resources can be depleted. So I love what Joe said about quality and things lasting a long time. So it should, you know, in a way, you kind of want this one and done design thing where you've created it. It's beautiful. It will last forever, or maybe through generations of your family. And you don't have to necessarily replace it. It just requires maintenance. And I think that's kind of what we should be striving for, you know, and not that kind of throwaway culture.
Yeah, I mean, I think the design industry is really perfectly poised for that kind of thing, you know, to move away from being part of the disposable kind of industries where you're, you know, going through things so quickly, and really emphasizing the investment in your space and in things that maybe you're going to pass on instead of throwing out. You know, just you know, when I think about us in particular, Caesarstone, and there's a reason why we offer a lifetime guarantee, is, you know, a warranty, is because we know that we're there for the long haul. And we often say that we're sort of nature improved, because we are from the earth. We respect that we're from the earth. We have a total line of sight into our whole supply chain. But on the other hand, what we've done is been able to augment that so that, you know, again, it has that safeguard in it, but and also has all the colors and the trends and the, you know, the surfaces. So, you know, it feels great for us to be in that kind of position, and to see people responding to what we've been trying to talk about all this time, which sort of leads me to the next thing that I wanted to share with you guys, because in this age where we can't travel, and Joe, I know you and I had talked about, you know, potentially doing a trip last year, but as you know, with our headquarters in Tel Aviv, we opened an unbelievable showroom. I mean, it's a showroom beyond. I mean, I think that gives it short shrift to even call it that. It really is a concept house, which is what we're calling it. And you can see from the images that we have, it's this really magnificent space that is a journey of inspiration and technology coming together, so that people can really move through the space and imagine what they want to put into their homes. And it's a great tool for designers. It's a great tool for homeowners as well. And it's something where I think we want to start bringing that kind of, experience to North America. I mean, it's very much, Joe, like an experience like Whole Home that House Beautiful does, on an annual basis, where you're working with a number of designers that really push the envelope with regard to how they use material, how they use fabric, how they present color, how they think about and conceive, of a space. And we're always so happy to partner with you on those kinds of things. But I think, to be able to show people in totality sort of the art of the possible is really interesting. And I know that's something that you focus on for Whole Home. And even beyond that, this year we were so happy. And then I'm going to stop talking about it, because I want to hear, from Anishka and from you. But Obsidian House, as a virtual concept house that we partnered with Hearst and with the Black Artists and Designers Guild. I mean, that alone was just so incredibly innovative with regard to, again, showing people an experience, providing that experience of how you interact with design, its elements, and its totality. So, I mean, I'll throw it out to both you guys, whoever wants to take it first. Like, talk me through, how Obsidian House came to be, the spaces that Anishka, that you worked on, and what you were trying to communicate with your space.
So the Obsidian House came about at the height of the lockdown and pandemic. So around March, April of last year. I think it was a way for us as the community of Black Artists and Designers Guild to kind of come together in a way that we needed each other at that time. And then also to start thinking about, okay, we're designers, how can we address what's going on in the world right now? And, and then apply that to a very specific family and project that into the future. So when you're thinking about innovation, the whole idea behind the Obsidian experience is that it's projecting out 5 years. What will the home look like for the Black family and just family in 5 years' time? And so for us, we were able to design the pool and the pool deck area, which we call the Atlantic, and it was basically to honor our ancestors who were forced into the transatlantic slave trade, and those who made it and those who didn't. And so, just thinking about, again, like ancient and old school techniques and methodologies that were employed by our ancestors, we wanted to look back at those things and figure out, okay, how can we apply that in a modern way and interpret that in a modern way? So, for example, we looked at straw weaving and hair braiding as a kind of like a way to embrace a very old traditional technique that's actually found right through across the globe, right, in all different genres of people. And then we applied it to the furniture. So majority of the pieces that we designed for the space were part of this idea of modernizing this straw technique, this weaving technique. Similarly, we looked at material choices and material selections, as well as systems choices. So for us, thinking about the future, we have to make smart choices. We have to make smart choices about the way that we want to live 5 years from now and the way that we want our children's children to live, 100 years from now. So, we looked at like the swimming pool as an option for that. We went with a natural living pool as opposed to a chemical pool or a saltwater pool. And basically that pool is being kept clean via plant life and rocks. I mean, just something very natural, just the way you would keep the lakes clean or the rivers clean. So, we looked at alternative material sources. So looking at solid surfaces for the countertops, and we're looking at clay materials for the planters and the daybed, looking at ground cover versus using grass, looking at drought resistant plants and fire retardant plants versus, just pretty things. Everything had to have a purpose. Everything had to have like a meaning. And then, bringing all of that, those thoughts and ideas that we had and creating something beautiful and that felt luxurious and, it's kind of like the epitome of eco-lux, basically. And, so it was a really rewarding experience for us, working alongside our peers and just having this experience that we feel could translate across the board to everyone, but it came from a very special and meaningful place to us.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think obviously it's embedded with so much meaning and, homage to, to the cultural background. But I think any design fan would look at that project and just be overwhelmed by the beauty of each of the spaces, for sure. I mean, I think it was just an incredible project.
Thanks. And I mean, I think kudos to all the other designers and artists. I think there were like 23 of us total. The, Mulaney Barnett, who helms the Black Artists and Designers Guild. And the architecture of the house actually was designed by two of the guild members, Layden Lewis and Nina Cook John. And just the overall experience was just phenomenal. Like even doing a little bit of brainstorming on the landscape design was just, just amazing.
And did you find that because it was virtual, I mean, you really could do whatever you wanted? I mean, you didn't have obviously any kinds of the real life, limitations that climate may present to you, or that, the quality of the earth may present to you. Is there anything that you, if you were going to take this into the real world, that you think you would have to change, or you would take the same sort of perspective?
I think that the virtual element really made us feel more emboldened to do whatever we wanted to do. And so, in reality, could we have produced a functioning piece of furniture in like a short space of time that would normally take to do for a show house or a concept house?
Right, they have to prototype and
exactly. But I don't think there's anything that we designed in that space that we wouldn't be able to reproduce now, given the right amount of time and framework. I think, the idea here was that we're using what we already have and know and trying to kind of bring it forward and push it into the future. So, so I would love to be able to create this thing in real life.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, and Joe, I mean, it sort of goes to the whole home project that you present and head up every year. I mean, that's a real life example where, the designers are really pushing the envelope with regard to how to use the materials, how to present the spaces, really pushing the design forward. I know that, in both of these, for example, we had our outdoor material, which, talk about innovation, the first quartz to be UV rated. The first time that we were really able to present it was, through a designer who was really going to, wanted to be the first one, put their hand up to be the first one to show it at Whole Home. And then we were able to show it through Obsidian. So do you take the same sort of perspective when you're conceiving of Whole Home and who you're going to partner with and what you want that year's theme to be?
Well, Whole Home was born about 3 years ago with wellness in mind. I mean, honestly, before we were talking about wellness on a daily basis. And it was really created as a space that was supposed to sort of give back to your life. That was really the main issue. And the truth be told, when I say wellness, obviously we have a physical health need, but what we sort of had become more focused on, as much as physical health, is emotional health over the past few years. And so, we always cringe a little bit. Carisha Swanson, our market director, who heads up the house, who very well, is she and I have always sort of looked at this house as we cringe when we hear the word show house, because show houses have they're really about designers getting to dream outside the box. But house is really about how can design give back to the homeowner in a really meaningful way. And so when the designers sign on to sort of take part in this project, they're really thinking about how can we reinvent the way a homeowner thinks about their space, and how can a designer sort of unlock the magic that could happen within these walls. The perfect example, I think the outdoor space is absolutely the perfect example, frankly, because I think, certainly with your product, the idea that you could live truly spectacularly outside, was something that I dreamed of. But to see this, you can see the living room there, the outdoor living space. It is as luxurious and feels as warm and welcoming as the indoor space, which is also represented there. But little did we know then too how critical outdoor space was going to become. Now it's gathering outside. This is where people feel comfortable. What I love there too in this example is, we wanted to look at the idea of multi-generational living. Now than ever, multiple generations are coming into the home. Your kids are moving back from, they moved out, they're moving. Your parents are coming to live with you. Because, I don't have to tell you. But also, thinking about elderly parents coming back where, maybe they lived in a group home before and now they're coming and living under your roof. We created a whole basically living space, a mini apartment for, for parents. So we call it the boomer suite for them to come back. So really the whole home is, how can your home create a holistic experience in your life, and how really changing the way that you approach your space and create something that is truly not only unique, but that is functional and true and emotionally connected to your life. That's
Right.
really where this whole thing came to life.
For sure. And I think, a real testament to the fact that, as you said, we don't like to characterize it as a show home, is that, I mean, it is for sale after, and just in my few years experience, I mean, they sell in a second, right? They are so well designed and well conceived, and every little detail is so thoughtful and considered that they just, I mean, who wouldn't want to live in one of those homes? I mean,
Of course.
I think also, sorry.
No, I was agreeing with you. And I'll also just say to that point, I think that's the other thing too, is what I love is that it's forward thinking in its design, but in its concept, it really is approachable and accessible, which to me is what, House Beautiful in particular is, what it's all about. I mean, Caesarstone as well. You just, your stuff is so beautiful. It's made for living. It's made for real life. I mean, that's the end of the story.
It is. And I think what's also interesting in these homes and Obsidian as well is that I think that sometimes, the default is to play it safe. When people are designing even their own homes, maybe they have too much of resale, in their minds, or they don't want to take a chance. But I think that both of these examples really demonstrate, that people are willing to take a risk, but they're also really attracted to those design risks. They want to live in spaces that, again, are really well conceived, but are a little bit different, maybe sometimes a little bit quirky. But again, it all goes to the consideration, and that it doesn't have, safe choices are not necessarily, the choices that people are willing to live with. And I think, when we look at, I'd love to show some of Anishka, some of your, work from your design clients, because one of the images that we have, which is this one here, which is a villa in Jamaica. In doing my research about it, I love that you had mentioned one of the first things that you did was, from a design perspective, you expanded the windows. You made them from smaller to bigger to bring those natural elements, inside, to have that sort of inside outside feeling, and to elevate the importance of, the external world, to, have the effect inside as well. So why don't you talk us through, this image, and I think we have another couple from a house that you did in the Hamptons as well, and how important that indoor-outdoor feeling is for you. And you can see here, the natural elements with those stools. Sure. Beautiful.
So, thank you. So for that house, it was a ground-up construction project. So we were able to really make some key changes to the space. And talking about the end user's experience, we really wanted to take advantage of the fact that this house sits right on the seafront. It's literally, they walk out onto the garden, and then past that, they're on the beach, they're on the sand, and then they're in the Caribbean Sea. So everything that we kind of did in this house was kind of paying homage to the fact that you had this incredible sea view there. So we opened up the stairwell to really make sure all of the sections of the home, like this dining area and the kitchen, had more direct views of the sea. We raised door heights, we increased the window sizes, like you said. And then one of the key things for us was wanting to work as locally as possible. So we identified local mill workers and the whole construction team, of course, but the mill workers, and then we use majority of the wood that you see here is locally sourced wood. And it's just it was an incredible experience, because it felt very important to be able to do that. We also had to clear a lot of trees to build this project, and so we were able to use back a ton of those trees. So the project lasted about 4 years, and for about 3 of those years, that wood sat drying and waiting and drying and waiting for us to be able to bring it back into the home in whether it was in millwork or furniture design. So yeah, it was really like, it was an incredible project from start to finish, and just the idea of keeping the client in mind in terms of the experience that they would have, and any end user that would come into this space, because it actually is a vacation rental property.
Right.
The same thing with this one, which is in the Hamptons.
Mhm.
You know, again, we didn't want to compete with the changing seasons and these practically floor to ceiling windows and doors that they had. So we kept the furnishings minimal and low profile. We used materials that were very sturdy and substantial and could take, you know, a beating if needs be, because it is a second home and a vacation rental property at the same time. So it was very considered how we approached this space.
Mhm.
And we worked with local mill workers again for some of the furniture pieces, and then when we looked at the sofas and the upholstery, we wanted to be as clean as possible. So you know, FSC certified woods,
Right.
natural wool materials for the fabrics, and again, just making sure that it was durable enough and long lasting enough.
Right. So beautiful. So beautiful. So I was saying that concept house for us in Tel Aviv, you know, the basis of it was education. You know, it was to help, you know, consumers and our customers learn about, you know, just the benefits of the material, you know, all the certifications, the standards, the different, you know, all the different attributes and colors that we have. And education, I think, is just, you know, so important because there's so many choices out there. And I think with the internet, and this year in particular, you know, a great thing is I'm, you know, you're never short for any kind of research resource. I mean, you can find information about everything and anything that you wanted to. But I think it's trying to you know, really narrow down what exactly you want, how you're going to use it. So I'm wondering, Joe, for you, like, how do you as an editor educate readers about design and all of the options out there? I mean, how do how do you get them to focus on how to make the choices that they need to make for their own personal spaces? I'm not sure if we've lost Joe.
Oh, I'm muted. I was just talking.
Oh, there you go.
Of course, I'm trying to be good here.
I know, a year in, and we're all still doing that.
Love that. I'm still also, because the whole time Anishka was talking, I was going, gorgeous. And then I was like, I should probably mute because your design is so beautiful. I will tell you, this is a constant struggle for me, because what I was saying was, when I was muted, that, you know, there's so much, to your point, there's so much information out there, but there's also so much bad information, you know? And
right.
So one of the things that I've really tried to do, as you know, Liz, is really envelop video into our world, House Beautiful. You know, for so long, we only really had the magazine to sort of showcase designers' beautiful work. I mean, we're 125 years old this year. And so, you know, for many, many years, it was just through imagery that we were really showcasing the why, you know, and the what. But now that we have video, and we have such an extraordinary video team, we are able to sort of tell the story behind the story. I mean, even listening, as we were just listening to Anishka talk about how she took a space from, you know, from point A to point B, that's where so much of the magic happens, and also so much where the education happens. You know, there's no design decision that's not considered when a designer is pulling a home together. And so for us to be able to follow sort of that journey and understand, why are you choosing this material over this one? And why are you making that scale decision? You know, it's not, to me, about exposing the secrets. It's about really making the audience understand how difficult, frankly, it is to be a designer and to bring those spaces to life, but also that it's not just for anyone. You know, designers are extremely important. They're very relevant. They know more than most of us. And, you know, and they are making educated decisions. So, for us, education is extremely important. I think, to me, education and seeing the examples of Tel Aviv, it really does sort of drive this home that, for us, education is about making something accessible. That maybe you can't do that thing, but that you understand that there's knowledge, you understand that there's information, like information is power, and that we want to empower our audience in the best way that we can.
Right. I agree with you wholeheartedly, and education goes a long way to empowering people to make the decisions that are right for them, for sure. So Anishka, I'm wondering, like, as a designer, do you find that there's any kind of tension between that you want to lead your clients in a certain direction, or to educate them, help them understand? I mean, not so much what you do, because I have a feeling by the time they come to you, they've done their research and they know exactly, or have an understanding of what they're going to get. But is there any kind of, I guess, challenging conversation that you have to have in order to either explain your vision or the choices that you are trying to get them to make?
So we have this thing that we do in the very beginning of every new project, which is we sit down with the homeowners for a few hours, maybe multiple times, and we really kind of not grill them, but it's very conversational. But this interview process where we really dig deep into who they are and what they want and what they want to achieve, how they want to live, what are the aspirations. And in that conversation, or multiple conversations, we end up exchanging our viewpoints on life and the world and our lifestyle. And it's really interesting because Naya, who is the other half of Ishka Designs, we share a very similar background. We're both of Jamaican and Guyanese heritage. I was born in Jamaica. He was born to Jamaican and Guyanese parents. My mom's Guyanese. So we have this kind of inherent way that we think about the world, and we live in the world, and we move in the world. And it kind of has formed the basis of our design approach. And so I think that it just naturally comes out in conversations with our clients at all the time, across the board. And so when we're delivering our design presentation, they've already kind of been informed by that. So it's not too hard a sell now once we get to that point. It's just more like, can the budget sustain this? This is what we want to do. But I still find that today we're still bringing information to our clients just as much as they bring to us, actually. But for example, my decision to no longer use liquid detergent to clean my clothes, I use like these laundry strip things. And it's not only is it just much more convenient, it's easy to pick up a very thin strip of paper versus lugging like gallons of laundry detergent to the wash. But I say all that to say that that happens at the intimate level with our existing clients. But on the broader level, like, I find it must be more challenging for Joe, because you're talking to a broad audience. I think we're not doing enough. I'm going to hold myself accountable now. I don't think we're doing enough to educate maybe the people who follow us on social media and stuff. So we've been trying more and more in our posts to kind of bring this awareness of how we think and our consciousness into and how we express that through design, to help maybe change the way some people think, or just open their eyes to a new way of thinking.
Yeah. And I think, it's like you were saying with the budget too. I mean, it's one thing when it's a single house, but it's another thing. I know you're involved in, hospitality as well. And, look, I think we've all got experience in renovating either our whole homes, or, Joe just underwent, a massive kitchen renovation. And, you do get to a point where, you're under stress, you're over budget, and you're willing to make those compromises. But the more that the more that you're educated, the more you've made, those determinations ahead of time, I think the more that you're going to stick with your convictions
Yes.
and, try and find trade-offs where it's not as significant. But, it can be quite easy just to say you want to do the right thing and then just, give it up when your back's against the wall.
And honestly, Liz, to that point, I think it's not fair for us to assume that everybody's going to be able to make the best
Sure.
decision, for
Right.
every single. I just don't think that's realistic. And,
Yeah.
I would say most of the planet doesn't have expendable resources that they can just, continue to fuel the fire. So I think, when I was saying before about knowledge is power, which is such a cliche, but at the end of the day, taking back the power of knowing what your decisions are and sort of knowing, okay, well, if this is the trade-off, then at least I understand that if I'm going to choose something that's lesser quality here, I'm probably going to have to replace it in X amount of years, and just knowing that rather than, sort of, assuming everything's fine and then being like, wait, why is everything falling apart?
Right. Which, as we would always say, go for the more permanent solution because, we're part of that. And, again, it's less waste, less money and that kind of, but you're right. The education is what will give people the confidence, I think, also to make the decisions, like you said, that are right for them. And you have to come at that basically like a huge degree of respect. So for now, I think what we want to do is, if I can indulge myself, we'll show a little bit of tape about the concept house, again, going back to that whole notion of, education, materiality, innovation, and then we can open it up for questions, because I know people are really eager to ask you and Anishka, both of you guys, some questions. So let's just watch a short little clip about concept house, and then we can get into the Q&A. So hopefully when we all are back in real life, this is a concept that we're going to bring to North America again, to be a great experiential space for designers, for consumers, for education. I just wanted to give you sort of a little bit of a glimpse into hopefully what will be, the Caesarstone future in North America. So now I think we want to throw it open for questions. I don't think that you need me to read. I'll read them out just for the sake of reading them out. But so, Anishka, this one's for you. Where did you find the inspiration for your obsidian designs, and what sort of challenges did you face, even though it was virtual, or because it was virtual even?
Our inspirations primarily came from the diaspora. So not just looking at the African continent to provide us with inspiration. We looked also at the Caribbean and the African American experience, and just kind of looked at the entire diaspora and to see what were the common elements that we could utilize or could be influenced by. But specifically, again, as I mentioned earlier, we looked at old school methodologies like straw weaving. We looked at architecture and like rammed earth homes, clay homes, those sorts of things, and looking at the way that people use simple, natural, grounded materials and how, again, we can use that in our design solutions, or finding materials that are similar in concept that are natural materials to use in the project. So that kind of is the overall, idea from where we got our inspirations. And then the challenges of doing it virtually. I think when it came to being to sharing the design solution with the renderers and the people who actually built the website, I think that's where it became somewhat of a bigger challenge, because we had a lot of complex curves and dynamic curves that were happening in the space. So just being able to translate that, we built our own 3D model, which is what we normally do in house for our clients. So we built that and handed that off, but even then, it was still like a back and forth communication process that needed to happen, understanding, the interpretation of materials and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think, that's the one thing, is that as high quality and rendered as it was, even if it had that sort of three-dimensionality to it, it's hard to conceive of, the surface types or like the texture sometimes in it, for sure. Yeah. Okay. And next question. Let's see, Joe and Anishka, what's been your favorite design trend, even though we said that we don't follow trends?
No. We don't follow trends.
No, we set the trends.
That's right. I have to say, I don't know. I've been talking about this for a little while, but I mean, I have to say that like whatever the opposite of open concept is, I'll call it closed and listen, and House Beautiful has run a couple of really beautiful.
And I'm thinking a new series, Design Debate.
Well, I'll just say, here's what I'll say, Ishka. And by the way, your spaces were extraordinary. And don't get me wrong, I love a big, beautiful open. And your work has appeared in the pages of House Beautiful. And we have some great open spaces. But I think right now people are looking for a place to hide. People are looking for a place to tuck away. And so we're just in so many nooks and bunk rooms and really sort of intimate. Intimacy is, I think, more of what I'm talking about. The whole home last year featured a tea room that was just honestly it was an office, but it was a space for the homeowner to sort of hide away and have a warm cup of tea. And to me, that's just so, as someone who has 3 kids who are jumping on a trampoline literally outside this window 45 seconds ago, I love tucking into things. So for me, that's something that I'm really excited to see designers sort of express. How can we find corners and little crevices for homeowners to sort of have a private, quiet moment?
Yeah, refuge. I love the tea room. It was so ceremonial, right? It's your own little. It's just a defined space.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that. And I get that totally. The need for intimacy and privacy. I kind of take that for granted sometimes. But I think what would be interesting, and I don't know if, and I think this has been happening more in smaller spaces, right? The ability for spaces to be flexible. So it can be open. It can be modified to be a more split in 2, split in 3. It has multiple functions. Sometimes we don't have the luxury of having one room dedicated as a tea room. We need to be able to use that room for other purposes. So thinking more about modular spaces, flexible spaces, and I think we're going to see more of that because of the same exact situation that we're in.
We'll make Anishka, we'll make a tea closet. How about that instead?
Tea closet.
Keep the tea room. I love it, but it could also be the cannabis room. It could be the meditation.
That's right. That's right.
Whatever.
Exactly. I love that.
There's ceremony around all of that, for sure.
if you ever do a cannabis room, you call me, Anishka, and you make sure the house beautiful comes in, okay?
Will do.
Before we get to this next one, I wanted to ask, and again, I know that we're not really talking about, trend as there's trend and then there's fad, but do you find that just in this last year that people are sort of more attracted maybe towards lightness overall versus like cozy dark spaces, or sometimes I think that white goes with these open spaces and dark is more about, the little, like the niches and the nooks that you carve into your house. But what we're seeing is certainly more about, natural light bouncing off of, indoor spaces that are a little bit lighter and brighter. So I don't know if you guys are seeing that as well.
I think we see that all the time. I think that people gravitate towards our firm because of that aesthetic. Interestingly enough, one of our current clients has asked for a more textural or experience space, and it's a lot of dark materials that they're gravitating towards. And it still feels very natural, though. I mean, we're still looking at materials that make sense and feels like it can be timeless and last. And so, while on the one hand, there's still like this very strong desire for white spaces and light spaces, and I don't think we'll ever stop designing those particular types of spaces. There has been like this creep back towards the dark, more intimate, cozy environment as well.
Yeah. I would say that too. I would say, obviously we spend a lot of time looking at what our audience is searching for, and what are trending in that way. I mean, obviously white paint is always, super high demand. But I would agree with Anishka actually, because I would say too, wall coverings are clearly coming back in a really important way. People are definitely taking more risks with color. I think what you're talking about though, Liz, is I think as we do spend more time at home and we are spending more time within the walls, we do start to feel like they are creeping in on us a little bit, especially when you've got homeschooling going on behind you and you've got a Zoom call that you're hosting a panel with Caesarstone in the basement, whatever it is. I think we're all just looking for ways to Anisha's point earlier too, make our spaces feel bigger, make ourselves not so trapped. And so whatever tricks we can use, whether it's bring in more natural light, paint things white, keep things open and airy, tuck things away so they're more modular. I think that is something that we are always seeing. I don't know that it has to do as much with color as it does with the feel of the space.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I think we have time for one last question, which was, if you could, in a hot minute, what's next on the horizon for innovation? Anishka, you mentioned mushroom leather, but if there's anything else, what's the next best thing?
Oh, I don't know. If I knew, I'd probably be the next billionaire.
Cannabis room, I gotta tell you, cannabis room might be something, Anishka. You gotta
exactly.
So the innovation around cannabis, not just ingesting it, how we can incorporate it in the room. I don't know.
Good one.
But I think at the end of the day, it's
through the air vent.
Going back to basics. Actually, I think it's going back to basics and looking at proven methodologies and technologies, and seeing how to apply those not in a harmful way, but in a way that we can improve ourselves, our well-being, our environment, and just the world. So, that's where I think innovation should be going. I don't know if it is, but I think that's where it should be going.
Yeah, and I have to say, I think, in a lot of ways now, the ability to share and include is very critical. And I'm interested to see how companies start to, we're already seeing refrigeration and cooktops that allow you to snap a photo of it and send it to your grandma to be like, does this look right? I'm cooking your recipe. Does it seem right? Now that we know what it's like to live in a world where we are separated from people, and I do think that we're going to start seeing more and more manufacturers trying to figure out ways for us to create a sense of inclusivity even when we can't be together. I'm really interested to see how people start to sort of integrate sharing into their
Right.
various different platforms.
Well, on that final note, I was really happy to share this screen with you guys, and really to feel connected and have this discussion. I mean, I think it's great for everybody just to hear the different thought processes and, you know, the jumping off points and obviously, you know, the finished product. And Anishka, I mean, you bring such an insight and perspective to your work. It's just a joy to see everything that you work on, done personally, for sure. And Joe, I mean, you know how much, you know, Caesarstone is a huge fan of House Beautiful. And, you know, we look forward to working with both of you in the future for many, many more years to come.
Thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Liz.
Thank you for being here with us.
It's been great. Thanks, Anishka.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye. And thank you all for joining us today.